How to get planning permission in the open countryside. Many of us dream of building a tailor-made home in the country.
But obtaining planning permission in the countryside can be a big challenge.
Indeed, it remains one of the biggest hurdles for budding self-builders.
In many ways, getting the green light from the council for a single dwelling in the countryside is a greater challenge than seeking permission for numerous houses. It can be frustrating to find that gaining planning permission for a single house in the countryside is difficult, only to discover that schemes for multiple homes are permitted nearby.
Countryside planning permission basics. The first thing to get your head around is the definition of countryside within the planning context.
Now you can identify whether or not your planned house is positioned in the countryside. Essentially, in the planning sense, countryside covers land outside the settlement boundary of cities, towns, and villages. So, it's the area that's further from and less connected to facilities, services, and transport hubs. Outside the confines of a settlement, different planning policies and approaches apply. Ultimately, these countryside-specific planning rules define what's possible in terms of what you can build. The settlement boundary may be fairly obvious. For instance, you might physically see where development ends, but there may nevertheless be some established buildings already in the countryside.
Buying a countryside plot.
So, you need to check where the dividing line is in order to confirm which side of the settlement boundary any potential building plots are on. This is best done via your planning authorities, i.e. the council's local plan.
The local plan will include a diagram that shows the relevant zones.
From this, you can establish the policies which will apply to any proposed development.
Common planning restrictions in the countryside.
The planning policy approach in the countryside varies depending on the classifications that apply.
For instance, the site you're looking at may be in an undesignated area of open countryside.
This will have its own restrictions or may be subject to specific landscape specifications, such as Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, AONB, Green Belt, or National Park.
All of these designations bring different and potentially more onerous constraints.
Therefore, it's important to understand what designation the site lies within, so you can determine the most appropriate approach to gaining planning permission.
In all open countryside, planners will consider the impact of the development on the openness of the landscape and the potential for visual harm.
There may also be specific regional planning policies that consider other matters. Always check the details, as these will not be the same everywhere.